Introducing Under Armour's Infinity High Sports Bra. Its ergonomic design is molded to support the natural movement of your body. With cord-out padding, the better breathability eliminates extra bulk without sacrificing support. And quick-dry padding is Under Armour's fastest-drying padding yet. When you're lifting heavy, running fast, and pushing yourself further than ever before, you need a bra that will help you go that extra mile and make you feel your best. Shop the Infinity High Sports Bra now at UA.com.
If I came this way.
Welcome to the Psychovertical podcast. I'm your host, Andy Kirkpatrick. It's been a long time since I did a podcast. I don't know why. Every time I kind of start, I just seem to, my brain goes blank. I did quite a long podcast where I was talking. Someone asked me about I think it was advice about a career, like how, like having a career or something, and about what to do if you're unemployed on the dole and stuff. So I started doing that, and I was like pushing the pram through the rain. So it was a while ago. It was in the winter time, and then I think Noah started crying, so I turned it off, and then I never went back to it. So I do apologise. So yeah, I don't know I can't remember what the last podcast was about. I guess I'll keep this one fairly short. I think one reason I don't do it as much is that there's always someone with some kind of noisy machinery or noisy like weed cutter type thing outside our house somewhere. There's always like a that kind of noise, which is like really annoying. Unless I'm doing it, then it doesn't bother me. So what can we talk about? I've just been on. I very rarely go on forums. I try and avoid it. I used to love going on. I used to love going on forums. Like I used to love Super Topper was a great kind of forum. In the days when the internet wasn't shit, basically. I think I've already talked about this before. I think the early days of the internet was like really amazing. I remember it was probably like 1995 maybe. I went round to my brother-in-law's house. He's very like tech savvy, and he was like, "Look at this is the internet." And he switched on his computer, and we waited like 5 minutes for it to like boot up or something. And it started. Then he like typed in some stuff, and then there was this like black screen with writing appearing on it. Like it might even been like it must have been text. You could read it, but it was it didn't really rock my boat really. I don't think I'd ever really use a computer either. So the whole thing, like unless you were switching it on and playing a game, I couldn't really see the point of what a computer was for. And then later on, a friend of mine, he said, "Oh, this is where you go if you want to look at pornography," which I thought, "Oh, that sounds like I need to get myself a computer." So I did actually buy a computer. This was before the pornography. I bought like a second-hand computer. Actually, someone gave me a computer once, but it was like I don't really know what to do with it. So yes, it was like Windows 3.7 or something. But yeah, anyway, anyway, but I bought a computer, and you couldn't go on the. I don't think you couldn't go on the internet with it. It was kind of rubbish. It was rubbish for like looking at pornography. You could see it was yourself wanking in the reflection. So not that I did, because it was kind of pointless. So I apologise if there's any young people listening to this. I don't know what I'm talking about. So so I think I can't think when the big breakthrough in I think I went to America right in the middle of the .com boom. So when would that be? 98 or something, 97, and everyone was like, it was all about the internet and everything else. It was like all really exciting, and I think I was decided it was probably something to get into, so I started going on, the internet, and it was really interesting in the early days. It just seemed pretty, because I think it's very hard to explain. Like in the past, if you wanted to say you saw a film on TV, so you film like, is it One Man and His Dog or something? You see this film late at night on BBC Two or something about this guy with a telepathic dog in a post-nuclear kind of wasteland kind of thing, who is supposed to inseminate all these women in this nuclear bunker to save the planet, something, save the human race. And you see this, and if you want to know anything about it, you basically have to go to a library and just hope there's some book about science fiction films from the 1970s or 1980s or something, and maybe there'll be like a paragraph about it or something. But you met someone else who'd actually seen the same film on the same thing. There wasn't really, I guess like videos existed, so maybe you could try and get hold of you go to like some mail order, you'd have to try and get someone to order you the video to watch, because it was DVDs then, or you go to some sort of record shop that sold DVDs and somehow try and get hold of it. I think I got like a few kind of obscure DVDs like that. But anyway, but then the internet came along, and you had all these people who were like interested in One Man and His Dog. It's not even called that, so it's something in a dog. And suddenly there'd be like, it'd be like forums where people were like, blah blah blah, and then someone would create like a website all about like the Time Bandits or something, and it was a really good website. It was, I think it's still there somewhere. It was all about that film Caligula, which is, if anybody doesn't know, it was like financed by Bob Guccione, or whatever his name is, the guy who owned loads of pornographic magazines, and it had all these like celebrities in it, like famous people like Malcolm McDowell and Peter O'Toole and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, they were making this film about Caligula, but on the evening, like somebody else was coming in, and he was like filming all this like hardcore pornography, and then like they inserted all this pornography into the film, and so it's kind of a crazy time for films, I guess. Anyway, to be a whole website all about that, like interviewing people and stuff like that. So it was, anyways, I remember thinking it was like, really, if you got that kind of brain that was really always like interested in loads of stuff, then the internet was like amazing. You could just find out so much stuff. And in climbing, like, if the first time when we went to Patagonia, the only thing we could find about what we were going to do was in a New Zealand climbing magazine. Was it climbing? It was, or maybe it's an Australian climbing magazine. So you actually physically get a hold of this climbing magazine and then read the article. So that was, so that's my email coming in. So that was, that would be it really. So yeah, suddenly with the internet kind of explosion of the internet, all the information was there for about, everything. And it just kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. There'd be like websites about sort of big wall climbing, and people would be writing posts about doing a route. So through that, you could like glean some information. But as it kind of expanded, you suddenly could get like literally every single climb on the planet is like now sort of recorded, and you can find out every single move on it, which is a shame really, because it was kind of cool. It was like when first time I went to Patagonia, we literally had Alan Key in his book, and in the back there's like a diagram of the mountain range. Like, we couldn't find any maps of the area, I think because it was, maybe the Argentinians didn't want good quality maps because it was on the border with Chile. But you literally had like a like a stick line drawing of like, this is one ridge, to get here you have to go over this ridge. And it was very, very simple, where now you just have like Google Earth. You could just see every single bush basically. So that's progress, I guess. But anyway, so forums, I used to like going on forums, but I think as the acidity of online life is like killed off all the large all the large animals, and it's just all that's left is all the bacteria. So I tend to avoid it. But I saw this article on UK climbing. Like I went off social media several months ago. Maybe that coincided with me not doing any podcasts, but I went off social media, so now I'm like totally through the shivers and the, you know, all that kind of stuff, like sweating and grabbing hold of other people's phones and trying to, you know, and trying to like set up like an account or something. So so that's, although I have actually got I decided to invest my time, although I have a website, I invested my time in Substack because I'm a big fan of Glenn Greenwald. So Glenn Greenwald's on there, so that I better do it as well. So Substack, it's like andyketpatrick.substack or something. And basically you go there and just post articles on there, like maybe once or twice a week, and then they eventually appear on my website, and it's a way of people like supporting your writing if you like what you do, so you can pay like like $1 a week or something if you think it's worth it. And at the moment I think everything's basically free anyway, so a lot of people are just go and read it. So let's have a look at that. What was my point? Social media. So yeah, I've kind of been avoiding any kind of social media, but that means you end up going back on your, like, you have this kind of screensaver in your brain, don't you? When you there's nothing else to do. You're not supposed to be looking at pornography, so you just look at I always look at every morning, like my wife's got a phone, like I don't own a phone, so my wife's got a phone. I've got a phone, but it's like a dumb phone. I need it to do your stupid banking stuff, or if you buy something, it has to text you and all that kind of stuff. So I got a phone for that. So I always like grab her phone. Like, I know it's terrible, but it's just like having a little sniff of the whiskey bottle top or something. And I always look at the BBC website and I regret it. And then I look at the Fox website and then I regret it. And it doesn't, neither of them make me happy, but it's almost like having it's like two people having a massive fight, and you're like, come over here, like, tell me what the problem is, and they tell you, and you go, just wait there, and you go see the other person, what's the problem? Oh yeah, and they go like, you're both fucking idiots. Basically, it's a little bit like that, really. It's like a balanced view of the world, it's like an imbalanced view of the world, basically from two perspectives. So what's my point called? That? Yeah, but one of these websites is UK climbing for some reason. I don't know why. It's just that thing. You just go to UK climbing, and like nothing's ever happening. It's always about the fucking boring Olympics and all that kind of stuff. And did anybody watch the Olympics with the climbing? I didn't watch it, so I just find it really. I don't know. I mean, it's not meant for me. It's like advertising, in it. It's not meant for me. So that's why. But yeah. Anyway, so I went to UK climbing, and there was an article about anxiety, and it was like some woman talking about anxiety in climbing, and I thought that was kind of interesting. So it's kind of rare. I actually ever find anything that interesting on there. I think maybe I might be getting like falling out of love with climbing in a way. Maybe we've been trying to go climbing with this child of mine, this like baby, and every time we go, it's always so frustrating, and you just come away like basically having a shit day and feeling shit at climbing, and basically it's like, why have I been doing this all for like, like 45 years? Like, basically climbing makes me feel shit the whole time. It's a bit like getting into acting or something, to feel like I'm wanted. It's just so frustrating. And you to kind of get up a piece of, like, the climbing here it's over on the Burren, which is like very sort of hard sort of limestone kind of sea cliff climbing. So everything, even like I was doing a route and I was like, oh, this is like this is this like an E1? And they were like, no, this is like a hard severe. And I was like, what the fuck? It's like feels like E1. It's got no gear on it. It's just mental, really. like a lot of routes in Ireland are graded for someone who's done them like 1,000 times, basically. Like, oh, that's easy. There's like a, there's a hole there around the corner, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so yeah, I was thinking like, oh, I'm just over climbing. It's just like we bought like a boat, like a second-hand boat, a boat, B-O-A-T, but anyway, boat. And so there's not far from us is like the biggest lake in Ireland, which is like loads of people go there from all over Europe. Like you get Swiss people there and German people and Austrian people, and Swiss German people and Swiss French people. So and German Belgians, and so we've been going there, and God, that's so much more fun. You just rock up with your boat. Although you have to work out to get the boat into the water, which is kind of tricky. If you're ever like reversing a trailer into the water, that's kind of, and you've got to try and look like you know what you're doing, which is tricky. So you go on this massive lake with this boat, and it's just like it's so easy. It's like not like going climbing. You just sit in a fucking boat. You got to get the engine working and all that kind of stuff. But it's just so much nicer, and you can just throw all your shit in the boat, like not literally, but you've got like, well, you have literally got shit in the box. You got like a baby in there that's probably got shit in his pants, but you've got, you can take all your stuff, and we head off to this island, and we go on the island, and it's got like it's really nice. This is like the one day of the year where it's not fucking pissing with rain here, and you go for a swim, and the baby goes to sleep on the beach, and Vanessa goes for a run around the island. It's just like so much better than going climbing. So basically, climbing's like it's just for selfish people, I reckon. It's all about you, and like, hey, I'm not climbing well today, and I should have stretched. And it's like, no, you should have fucking done something else. You should have just gone in a boat instead. So I think I did have a mini climbing adventure where I was sitting in the coffee shop. Ignore this if you heard the story already. I was sitting in the coffee shop, and some guy turned up, and he was like, "Oh, you're Andy Kirkpatrick?" And I'm like, "I used to be." And he was like, "I saw you in this film, Psychovertical, on a plane somewhere." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And I said, "Are you a climber?" And he said, "Oh, I've been like top roping over on the Burren." So I was like, "Oh, he must be a climber." So I was, for some reason, I was just like, I must have been really desperate to do something. So I was like, do you want to go climbing sometime? So there's this route called, what's it called? Death by grass or something. What's it called? It's called Seventh Heaven. It's called. Not a good. It didn't live up to the name. And I was like, do you want to go do this route, Seventh Heaven? It's like this kind of mysterious route that's upon the Connemara in the mountains there. So it's like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Anyway, so we set up this date to meet up. So we met up at the car park in the Connemara Mountains. Great, really amazing mountains, not far from our house, and like proper mountains. Like I always thought the mountains in Ireland would be like big bogs, like bogs with like a church on top or something, but they literally are like some proper mountains here, like really good mountains. It's better than, as good as you get in Wales or the lakes or something, not Scotland, but of course. So we turn up there, and his name was Pat, which is a problem because when I was climbing with him, I kept thinking like, is his name actually Pat, or I thinking he's called Pat because he's Irish? It's like, when you go climbing with, like, yeah, I used to have a relation of mine who was black, and he was called Leroy. And I always used to get like really, really like paranoid that his name wasn't Leroy, but it was Leroy, so it was okay. So anyway, so Pat, so we get. I said, "Oh, show me what gear you've got." So he had a harness, and on his harness he had a belay device and a pulley. And I thought, that's a bit weird. Why has he got a pulley? And he said, "Oh, I've got two belay devices." So I should have realised that, because he thought a pulley was a belay device. That was like a warning sign. So I don't like pay attention to stuff like that. So we packed our bags, and we went up, and you have to walk up quite a long way. And there's this route called Carrot Ridge. There's no carrots on it, but it's like, I think it might be the longest. It's supposed to be the longest climb in Ireland, which is it's like 1,000 feet high or something. It's like a big quartz rib coming down. It's not very difficult. It's probably V-diff or something. And some people say you could just walk up it, but it's actually, because it's like quartz, like, is it quartz? Anyway, it's that white rock that's like very slippy. There's not a lot of gear on it, but it's not actually very difficult. But it's amazing. It's a lovely place to go climbing, because you can get up onto the horseshoe up there. It's like a big horseshoe that's really kind of quite hard work. Big walk up there. So we go up there. We got to the bottom of this route, and I'd heard that this route was really sparsely protected, if at all, and the belays weren't very good. So I really should have brought some pegs or something, but I didn't. So we started climbing, and I did the first pitch, and I just did like a 60-meter pitch, and I think there was maybe one piece of gear in 60 meters, but the climbing wasn't very difficult, but it was, again, this kind of like quartzy kind of rock. So as long as nothing snapped off, you weren't really going to fall off. But there was a lot of like grass and stuff, so you're kind of like meandering around all this grass and tufts of grass. So then I get to the first belay, and it was actually there was an old sling around a big kind of flake, but you could see the flake was not really attached to anything, which was kind of sitting on the thing. So if you pulled it from the top, it would probably fall off. And I think there might have been a peg, but the peg was like really crap as well. It was like a rusty peg, and somehow I managed to make some sort of belay out of that. Anyway, so I brought Pat up, and then Pat got to the one piece of gear, which was a cam, and he was like trying to pull it out, just by pulling it out with his hand. And I'm like, no, Pat, you have to do it like this. And he was like really, really fiddling, trying to get it out. And I was having to explain, it's like a syringe. You have to like put your finger at the top, and you have to pull back. Is that a syringe? Yeah. So so I thought that's another bad sign that he didn't know how to get the cam out. So I thought it doesn't matter. So he came up. In retrospect, I realised he didn't know how to belay either, but it didn't really matter on that route. So anyway, so the route kind of carries on up, and it was luckily it was kind of dry, but there was one pitch where it was very, very like just like bushwhacking up this like steep corner with loads of, well, it looked like grass, but it was actually just like kind of like sponge. So it wasn't like grass. Grass can actually be quite good. If you can remember climbing New Zealand, you get really good at knowing what grass you can pull on and what grass isn't. You know what plants are good to pull on. But it was kind of like you just put your hands in it, and it would just kind of sink down up to your elbows, and so that was kind of scary. And every now and again, you'd like dig into the mud and hopefully try and find some kind of crack or something. And I think I might have found one piece of gear, but none of the gear was very good. And then it got anyway, just like that. It was like shit climbing, no gear, shit belay, then another pitch of shit climbing. And it just kind of went on like that. But Pat seemed to be enjoying himself, so that was good. And then we there's a bit where you have to traverse around to the other side of this. You're climbing like a big pillar type thing. Climbing around to the other side of this pillar, and there was like a big loose, like small TV size block, just sitting on the pitch, where if you just pull on it, you could pull it off. So when Pat was coming up, because he was like traversing around, and as it traversed around, you really got a sense of exposure, like hanging down. Like, I'm not scared of heights, but I can really appreciate how other people would be scared of heights if they would never really been climbing before. So as Pat came round, I was like, Pat, like don't touch that block, but when you get above it, I want you to kick it off. So like Pat was like hanging on, and he looked kind of, like freaking out. He looked a bit scared, and then he just kicked. I said, like, just kick the block, and he kicked the block. And there's something about being really, really afraid, and then seeing like a block just like flying off and like exploding and crashing down the screes below you. It was he looked even more afraid then. And then we had this kind of sort of semi-hanging belay and another crappy belay. I think he would have survived if I'd fallen off, if I'd taken like a 120 meter fall. I think the belay might have held, apart from a few of them. Anyway, so we eventually get to this last final belay, and it was amazing, like a spot where you basically end up in this like a rib with grass on one side, and when you got to the top, there was like a most perfect grassy ledge, like with an overhang above it, where you could just, it was almost amazing place to bivvy if you really wanted to bivvy up there. I can imagine a few people have already bivvied up there. And it was kind of getting dark, and luckily we had head torches, so we eventually topped out, and I think it was probably like 8 o'clock in the evening, so it'd been like a really, really long day, and we kind of headed down, and like where we both got in separate cars and we drove home, and it was a kind of midnight by the time we got in our cars, and unfortunately on the way home, there'd been like a motorbike person had been killed in a crash, so the road was closed. So you had to do like a detour, which took about an hour because there aren't many. Basically, driving down the coast, and there's only one road that goes down the coast. And if that's closed, you have to drive all the way back up the coast and go inland anyway. So it was a really great day. But the next day, I could literally hardly walk down the stairs because I'd just done so little walking or climbing. Like I was like really, really, really wrecked. And I did notice because Pat had actually been like a personal trainer, like under Jim. He'd been like an MMA fighter, and he ended up being quite a well-known kind of character where I live. And Pat, we both had this thing about where I've been standing somewhere, and there was like a kettlebell, like a 24-kilo kettlebell, and I just like picked it up and like swung it like 10 times, did like 10 kettlebell swings and put it back down. And then about an hour later, I just absolutely felt wrecked, like my back and everything else. So I think that was one of the strange things with the old lockdown stuff, is that you maybe like artificially you kind of, well, a lot of people kept very physically fit, but for me, I was just basically got fit at pushing a pram around. But yeah, you kind of forget. I think the older you get, I think you have this thing where you can be like just strong. You've always been strong all your life, and you take it for granted. So I remember a friend of mine, they were doing sort of weightlifting. They were doing a weightlifting program to do with some sort of sport performance thing. And the person training them had them on these like ridiculously light weights. And now just like, that's like so stupid. Like you just go in there and start lifting really, really heavy weights straight away. But you kind of take it for granted how strong you are, I think. And it's only when you allow your strength to lapse. Like this is the first time in my life, I think, I ever let my strength lapse quite a long way. Like I went through this period when Noah was born, where I think I got so fat. I think I was like 108 kilos or something, whatever that is. So it was like pretty fucking fat. Like I couldn't. Like my son came over and he like tapped my stomach and he was like, "When's the next one due?" or something. And he's like, "Oh God, when your kid starts making out you fat, you better do something about it." So, and like I've got this like Montane waterproof jacket, and I always know when I can't zip it up that it's very well that I'm getting too fat. But I just call it. It's like a fallow period. I think it's quite good to get fat and thin. I think it's like a natural. It's like the winter time. There's nothing wrong with being fat. So I end up doing a, kind of more like a diet where I cut out most of the carbs and stuff. Probably cut out all the carbs, and I was like fasting. So I was just like eating like once a day or once and a bit a day, and I lost like loads of weight. I lost like 13 kilos. Is that 13? Yeah, 13 kilos, which is like a fucking huge amount of weight. But basically, what I did, I lost fat, but I also like lost a lot of muscle. So suddenly my legs were like really skinny for the first time ever since I was a kid, probably. And Vanessa was like, "What the fuck have you done to your legs?" So then I've had to like now try and restore my strength through things. So, but it's kind of it was interesting experiment to see, like to get really, really to get, you have to, if you're going to lose your fat, you're going to have to do it over a very long period. But if you want to lose all your muscle, you can probably do that quite rapidly. So, back to the forums. Yeah. So even though I think climbing's shit and it just makes me feel shit. Have you ever seen that film? Hamlet 2, one of the best comedy films no one's ever seen, with Steve Coogan? But there's a bit where he he's like a drama teacher, and he says, because I was rejected by my father, I got into acting. So then I was rejected by, basically it's that kind of thing. So climbing's a bit like that. So, so I was on the UK climbing, and it was this woman talking about anxiety and climbing and blah 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 blah. So I kind of thought, for some reason, it's very rare for me ever to comment on. I think that the only times I've ever commented on UKC in the last probably 5 years is when someone was saying I was like Adolf Hitler, or they weren't going to buy my books because of my politics and all that kind of stuff. So I'd always like, I can't help myself from like getting involved. I think it's like a working class thing. Like Vanessa's like, oh, just don't read it. I just don't respond. I'm like, fucking bastard, come out here. Let's have a fight outside. So, but anyway, just thought like, oh, that's interesting. I shall add something to this. I should write something about anxiety and stuff like that in the comments. Very, very rare for me to do this, but I just thought I'd do it. And so basically, I just wrote something about how you have to be really aware of the language you use, and because basically you can kind of hem yourself in or entrap yourself in the sort of language you use. So an example is I think you should never use like pathologizing words. So you should never use the word depression. You should never use the word stress. You should never use the word like anxiety and all these kind of things. Like you should use, instead of saying like, oh, I'm really depressed at the moment, you should say I'm really melancholic, if you can say it. I'm sad, basically. So melancholy is a much better word than depression, because it's you can't get any medication for, go to the doctor. I've got melancholia. Can you sort me out? So, but you're trying to have words for things which are more organic and more human and more kind of natural, and not trying to sort of self-pathologize everything you do as being, I've got anxiety, therefore I need to get anti-anxiety medication, and it's just kind of like this sort of spiral kind of thing. So you have to be really aware of the language you use, like the language you use about yourself, like how you think about yourself, how you talk about yourself, how you write about yourself, and just be very conscious of what it's really doing, because I think your subconscious is listening. Like your subconscious, like basically you can't bullshit your subconscious. It really knows what's going on. But at the same time, you could probably fool yourself, So like a lot of people will say, a lot of people will, like the fact this person wrote an article about how anxious they are, that there's going to be on a UK climbing on a forum, shows, maybe they're not anxious, maybe it's like something else. So often you can misidentify something. So instead of saying, so often people like, they're actually excited, but they're misidentifying that excitement as being anxiety. So like butterflies, the idea of having butterflies in your stomach is a form of like, you want to get on with it, you want to do it, you want to demonstrate you can do it or whatever, or it's probably like, like if you're like Maximus, what's his name, Biggest Dickus in Gladiator, you're about to go in the forum and you've got your sword out and your spear and all that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, I'm feeling so anxious, oh my god, yeah, you could say like I'm shitting myself, like the idea of shitting yourself is much better than saying you're anxious, because it's like it's kind of, it's just, it's not funny if you shit yourself, but it's kind of, it's a more human kind of thing. So often we're misidentifying something, and also there's this idea that you create walls, like barriers in front of you, but really you need to see them as like a hurdle. So I've said before, one of my motto in life is that before every great leap comes a hurdle, and often the moment when you're most likely you want to give up something, you don't want to go on that trip, or you don't want to ask that person out, or you don't want to go for that job interview, or you don't want to, go climbing anymore. That's often the moment just before you get like a huge leap in your life, like something significant is about to happen, and it's like a test. But also maybe that test is, you're creating it for yourself. So a lot of the language we use is it's a little bit like when you get a note from your mum for the PE teacher to say you got a verruca or something, you can't play football or something, and you often use these words in order to then have an excuse, like, I knew I couldn't do that, like E7 because I'm 108 kilos or something. So you create these things. So you have to kind of replace them. So it's like, because sometimes I'm really fat, I often say like, oh, I'm like a bumblebee, like, I shouldn't be able to fly, but I can. And it's kind of funny, but also it puts like a spin on it. And the classic one is when you say like, oh, my right arm is really weak, but what you say is you go like, oh, my right arm is strong, but my left arm is even stronger. So I'm sure you get what I'm saying here. Like a good example was, I used to have this girlfriend who was doing like really, really horrible like turbo sessions on a bike, and she called it like what she call it, like like death sessions or something. It was something. So I was like, why do you call it like like a gold session? Because you want to get a medal at the end of it. And so it's just the way you talk about things. You can often hear people just talking about themselves like, oh, I'm not very good at this, or I'm weak at this, or I'm shit at this. And I even see it especially with kids. I often see parents. My sister, she's got these two amazing kids, but one of them is like really physical and the other one is less physical. But you often say like, oh, she's really sporty, but she's more creative. She's more timid, and it kind of seeps into the head of the child. So they become more timid because that's what they say they're like. But if you kind of separate them out and you're like, go and jump in that river, and your mum's not here, show me that you're not timid, they'll do it. It turns out they couldn't swim, but never mind. That's why they were timid. So, but yeah, and I've been on trips with people where you start calling them like hardcore. The person who seems like the least able, you start calling them hardcore, and you start telling them you can't be delusional about it. Like if they're shit, they're shit. But often people just need a bit of wind in their sails, and they'll kind of go along. So I think, but we do live in an age where there's a lot more social credit and cachet from being like a weak, pathetic loser. Like even the way people speak, like like they just, like I often talk about like Jocko Willink. Like what I love about Jocko Willink is he's just like so like, I'm so, it's just like this, like just the way he talks and the way he acts and the way he looks. He's like a manifestation of like not being a weak fucking, a weak person. He just, some people can't avoid being weak, but they can be strong in other ways. Well, some people just embrace weakness in all its forms, basically, because it's just like an excuse, which actually is actually a form of strength, I think. Those people. So you need to basically turn all these walls in your mind, like why you can't do stuff, into hurdles, so you can just like just try and jump over them. Like again, there's like, yeah, you might, you're shitting yourself, you're going to stumble and trip over them, but everyone does, and it's kind of funny as well when you do it. So anyway, so I wrote this. It took me a good 10 minutes to write this thing about language and how to get over it. And I even said at the end that like there'll be a lot of grammar errors in this comment, and I could say it's because I'm dyslexic, but really you got to warn it, and it's just because I'm like lazy and don't pay attention. and I posted it. I thought like that was a very positive interaction with UKC for a time, and maybe someone will read it. They might like, yeah, he's usually full of shit, this guy, but I think I can see his point. But unfortunately, it was immediately deleted for being inappropriate, and I've all my rights of posting on UKC have now been blocked for some reason. So yeah, that's the world we live in. That's why I'm not on social media, because everyone's a fucking weak ass fucker. Anyway, at least it may give me the opportunity to do a podcast. So I'm turning some negative there into positive. I've actually become a life coach, actually. Like that guy. It's always the guy, isn't it? Anyway, so I might become a life like dating. Incel. I'm gonna the incel ex-climbers incel business is going to be booming. So yeah. So yes, that's probably I'm probably going to change this podcast to something, something stronger with Andy Kirkpatrick, something like that. So I guess that's my. I thought I was going to keep it a bit shorter today. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. So at least I found 40 minutes of stuff to talk about. But yes, I am going to try and endeavour to get back into podcasting. I am actually on tour. I'm not just what's that word? Not felching. Simping. I'm not just. This wasn't the reason for doing it. I am actually on tour in the UK in October. So maybe that'd be quite cool when I can do a podcast while I'm on tour and tell you all the funny things that happen. Probably it'll just get cancelled because of some variant of something. So, but anyway, so if you want to know details, it's on my website. I've got some. I got a lot of questions sort of piled up for next podcast. So I'll do like a little Q&A podcast. Anybody's got any questions, send them in. Any problems with psychological problems, any health problems, anything at all, gardening, how to mend the impeller on a 5 horsepower Yamaha engine, anything like that. I'm your man. I'm here for you, and thank you for listening. Until next time.
Experience the power of 5G with T-Mobile. With faster 5G speeds nationwide, you can upload your favorite videos super fast or game on the go. Plus, T-Mobile has more 5G bars in more places, so you can stay connected to what matters most from almost anywhere. Switch to T-Mobile today, the leader in 5G.
T-Mobile has America's largest 5G network, fastest based on median overall combined 5G speeds, according to analysis by Ookla of Speed Test Intelligence data. 5G speeds for Q4 2021. See 5G device coverage and access details at T-Mobile.com.